Welcome back to another Workshop Wednesday. I have an amazing announcement and surprise for everyone today. I'm so glad that you guys are all joining us, and we are so excited to introduce you guys to our newest staff member, the one, the only Dawn Tucker. Woo! Welcome, Dawn. You've been an HSRA member for quite some time. However, over the last year, you've had a little transition. And so tell everyone kind of like your history, a little bit of your story. And then today I'm going to interview her on some fun topics. So,
yeah, thank you. So starting with probably about 10 years ago, love design, kind of dipped my feet in it, got them a little wet, a little too scared to go full time. Fast forward a couple of years, I decided to start a staging business with that design decorating business. I was approached by a real estate agent, and he sent me to HSRA in Dallas, and I am forever grateful to him. So that's how I started. I started with a very small, two shelves, one shelf actually, in my basement of my old decor that I would use and pull. So very small. Fast forward in a very short time, probably 4 years, I grew to 3 warehouses. I had two great designers and stagers, and then I had an administrative assistant. I teamed up with my own logistics team, but I outsourced them. So that was great. And then with the design side being so busy, I had to pick and choose, and I came to a fork in the road. I went to straight design. I loved it. I had still my admin, and then a couple of great designers. 3 full-time designers were on my team at one point. And so it just grew. I mean, I just continued to grow and continue to grow. And then I just decided it was time to shift. And so here I am. I'm still in the industry. I'm still with all of my industry leaders, which I love. I still talk to everybody. I still love on everybody. But now I get to do that as a job, which is even better.
I know, isn't it the best?
It is the best. I hope I summed that up pretty quickly. A span of 10 years in just a few seconds.
Well, I think that's very impressive, because the fact that you went from, it just being a hobby, which we know a lot of staging companies consider themselves as a hobby, and you need to stop doing that. Stop considering yourself a side hustle or a hobby. You are a real, legitimate job, career. You offer great services, marketing services to the real estate industry. But the fact that you went from that to what so many, I believe, stagers struggle with, right? Like they're not quite doing it full time, and they kind of continue to kind of struggle and kind of go slow. But then there's this moment when everything happens all at once, right? And they just kind of get infused into being a real live company. And I love that you were able to, you had a whole staff. You dealt with logistics. We have to give a shout out to your social media admin, and obviously those designers and all of that too. So today, the fun topic is going to be lessons learned the hard way. And so we know that you've been there. So many of our staging businesses have been there. Jana literally created the Home Staging and Redesign Alliance so that she could share the lessons she learned the hard way and create processes and procedures and trainings for the staging industry so that they don't have to learn them the hard way. So I'm super excited to have you on board. I know that you are still infused into the community, the home staging and design community. We know so many people love you, and we are so honored that you are here with us at HSRA, and we're so excited for the future. You're like sister from another mister. So go way back. All right. So let's talk about some lessons that you learned the hard way that those who are watching now or later, that they could actually take what you're telling them and implement it so that they don't have to learn this the hard way. So, number one, what is the importance of a good business name?
I could sit down and talk with a lot of people about this. So at first, it was so personal to me, the business and starting the business and building a business, that I was unable to separate myself from thinking about the future, because at the moment, or in the moment, it was my baby. And I had, again, turned this from a hobby into an actual legit business. So I attached my name to it, and it was Dawn's Designs. And if you ask any of my team members from probably 2 years on, I wanted to change my name, but everybody knew me as Dawn's Designs. There was a huge struggle there, but it became not my business, if that makes sense. Yes, I owned the business, and yes, I was in charge of a lot of things, but my team held me up. I mean, a quarterback has to have an entire team to protect him in order to throw a touchdown, right? And so the team is not named after the quarterback. The team has a team name because they are a team. So not to be cheesy, but that was just my biggest mistake. If I could go back and change it, yes, it was still my baby, but I would have definitely given it, I don't know what I would have called it. I would not have attached my personal name to the business. So those are my nuggets. Those are my 2 cents. Take them for what they're worth. But I didn't think about the future. Of course, I knew I wanted to build and I wanted to grow. And I wanted my family to be proud of me. And I wanted just the community to respect me. And so, again, I made it a little too personal. And there were other ways that I could have gone about that. So,
yeah, even if you have to use initials, right? Like
yes.
DT Designs or something like
Yeah.
that. And if you did name your staging or design business after you, you can always do a rebrand. Like
Yes.
rebrand your company and somehow do a transition, which we are going to talk about at our marketing mastermind this month. If you're interested in that, you can go to hsraevents.com. But you can do a rebrand, and that's a safe way that your colors are still the same, maybe your fonts are still the same, but you just kind of tweak some things. So don't worry, you can definitely rebrand. All right. So when you first started, Dawn, how did you get your first few clients, and then what things did you do wrong in getting clients?
So first few clients were word of mouth. Obviously, people, it starts with friends. Friends see what your potential is and can be, and then they begin to share. And so social media can be a great outlet, because they would post a picture of something I had done. And of course, they knew 10 people that loved it, and those 10 people knew 10 people that loved it. And it goes from there. So that was kind of how I began to get my clients. And then tell me, what was the next question? What
did you do wrong in getting clients?
Oh, well, that's hard. I think what I did wrong in getting clients is, I don't know if there's a wrong way. I think that I said yes to maybe some jobs that there were some red flags, and you just said it. As a stager, no matter where you're at, I didn't value myself and my business and what I brought to the table enough that I could have probably said no. And it wasn't a no, as in I didn't want them to get the help, but I didn't feel like I was the right fit, if that makes sense.
Sure.
And people respect that. When you say you've got to find the person that's the right fit, and you guys you're just going to kill it. You're going to make it work. And there were very few, but there were a few that I probably should have said no to, that may have hurt instead of helped my business by word of mouth, because something went wrong somewhere that was probably beyond my control. But again, I didn't value myself enough as a business and as a home stager. And that is That's something that I still every day for 10 years had to learn and relearn and continue to tell myself is that I am bringing enough to the table, and I have to value what I have.
Yeah. And also, as a stager, especially when you're first getting started, one thing you don't want to do to get clients is undervalue your services. That is like the hardest lesson to learn when you're willing to stage something. Maybe it's for like $1,000 and really that's a $3,000 job. Because what happens is now you have set a standard for the value that you value your job for, the staging job, or the design job. And so forevermore, that customer, that client is going to look at you as the $1,000 stager. Now, I know there's probably people on here like, oh my gosh, I'd love to get $1,000 job, but you're worth so much more. Your services are worth so much more. And so don't undervalue yourself just to get the client. Like Dawn said, it might be scary, like not being a right fit. If that person wants to walk over you or control the whole stage, if they want to pick the colors, the vases, the artwork, maybe that's not the right fit. They're clearly not trusting you as the professional. So that was so good. All right. Speaking about pillows and choosing art, where as a beginner stager did you find your furniture and accessories? Be honest, were you taking them out of your house?
That is the best story. I did. My husband, as soon as you walked in my front door, I have a formal dining room it's open and it's right to the right hand side. And I'll never forget that I committed to a stage and I had planned on a certain table. It didn't work out. So I pulled my own formal dining room table and 8 chairs and all of the artwork, everything out of my dining room. And my husband, all of this happened during the day. He's at work. And so he comes home and it looks like we got robbed. But I did. And I think that was my first class with Jana. I didn't have any inventory. I only had the heart and I had this passion. And I just was scared. And I'm like, what do I don't have anything. So how do I stage? And Jana taught me that you don't have to have anything. You have the heart. You work with what you got. And if you got nothing, then you start with consultations. And that's what I did. And then I began to build my inventory. So as I got a consultation job, I would save that money and then apply that towards just a short trip to Home Goods, because that's all I could start with. I couldn't afford to go to market yet and get a big order in. I couldn't afford to put in some bulk orders and I did learn all of that in time, thanks to HSRA. I mean, again, it's, you guys are just feeding us the information that we need at the time that we need it. And so that's funny. I pulled my own furniture out of my own house.
I think Jana said that as well. I'd love to see in the comments, whether you're watching this live with us now or later, what piece of furniture have you as a stager actually taken out of your own home to put in a property? That'd be a great survey to have. I bet you there's a lot of dining rooms, sofas, artwork, all of that. So speaking about, I love that you mentioned that, if you don't have the inventory or the finances for the inventory, let's start with consultations or walk and talks, or maybe you're just doing design boards for somebody because you're wanting to earn that money. So how did you, when you started, how did you learn to price yourself for the actual value that you're offering the agents?
That is a great question that again, at an HRA, like a conference you guys held. So I kind of did my homework and looked at what other stagers, designers were implementing. Then I went to a conference that taught me that you have to pay more attention to your demographic. You have to pay attention to not only the demographic, but what service you're going to give. How clear are you in what you're going to give? It can spiral from there. But it was doing a lot of homework, talking to my community. I would go buy a coffee or a cocktail for real estate agents, for investors, for other stagers that were open to just sharing with me, and designers. And I would say, I don't want your trade secrets, because again, we're competitors, but this is with other stagers, of course. But share with me, what you're willing to share, so that I can learn and I can build. And they began to do that. And the ones that did share with me, when I built my business, I invested back into them, because that was, it worked out really, really well. But I think you need to do your homework. You've got to talk to your community. You have to be willing to have these sit down conversations. And you also probably have to be willing to hear what you don't want to hear. But again, do not undervalue yourself, because, there were definitely some not so nice people, that wanted to walk all over me and or said, well, how about I give you this or you give me this? And that was not valuing what I brought to the table. And so it took a lot of homework, but it also takes a community of stagers. And that is why HSRA is great, because they weren't my direct competitors. They were my family, if that makes sense. Even though we're all in the same industry, we could have been in the same town, but we all want to see each other succeed. And there is enough business out there for everybody if we just do this right.
Yeah. And I do think when with the amount of people that we've spoken with over the years and coached in the home staging industry, I really believe that the ones that don't want to share the information or they're not as friendly, it's probably because they've been cut by somebody before. They've been offered somebody that they've maybe did a quote to, was they went with another company because that company undercut them. And it's kind of like a catch-22. If we're willing to discuss our pricing and even the bare minimals, like we don't leave the dock for under 1,500 or under 2,000, because, obviously prices are different here in California versus Wichita where you're at. So like the cost of living is totally different. However, every business owner needs to know their bottom line. My trucks do not leave this dock for a job that's less than 1,500 or 2,500, right? Even if you're just sharing that bare minimal with the other staging company in your area, you are setting a precedence for all the agents. They're going to pick up and dial a stager. They're doing it right now to find out what the best deal is. But could you imagine if they all heard around the same amount? Then that would put a higher value, and we would be taken more serious in our industry if we all had similar standards and pricing. Obviously, we all offer different things. Some people, like a newer stager, is not going to be able to handle a luxury stage, right? But the beauty in having the conversations, taking them to coffee or cocktail or dinner or whatever that is maybe you're not where they're at, but guess what? They might be so busy that they may need to refer their consultations to you. How many people within HSRA have those partnerships? One person just does vacant stages, one person just does consultations, and they're able to refer back and forth to each other. So it's always better to put on your big girl pants and have the conversation with your local competitors. It's just a normal conversation. We value what we do in our industry, and I want to make sure, me as a newbie stager, I'm honoring the seasoned stagers and at least in the same ballpark when it comes to pricing. And I mean, I've heard so many countless stories of like stagers picking up the phone and warning like, hey, Joe Smith's going to call you. He's a little creepy. He wants to meet you at the property by yourself. Don't do it. Like, or, this person was a real pain, or they didn't pay us last time. There's so many benefits to just building relationships with the fellow stagers in your direct area, as well as being a part of a community like HSRA and having those people to talk to, having Dawn, having Jennifer, our staging business advisor, to just jump on a call with and say, hey, what do you think about this? Am I going in the right direction? And so it's so important to set your pricing at least in the same ballpark as those around you. Do not undercut. That just shows you don't value yourself or your services. So speaking of that, when, Dawn, did you know to say no to a client? I know it's going to be so hard, especially for the newer stagers. Like, I just need any job. And I know maybe that many people, well, more people could be saying no right now because the real estate market's a little crazy and a lot of our staging businesses are super busy. But when do you say no?
I think that it might be different for everybody. I knew when I had to say no to a particular stage was when I couldn't bring to the table what I wanted my name on, if that makes sense. My inventory was all out, or most of it was out, and what I had, again, didn't fit into the home that they wanted me to stage. It could have been more of a luxury staging, and all I had were maybe some more basic items in my warehouse. And I think that as much as the realtor didn't want to hear that I could not stage the property, again, there's some respect that's given back because I said, look, I do have items, but what I have, I will not put in your home because they don't fit the aesthetic of what you have going on. And I think it needs to have a little bit more of a luxury feel. I don't have that in my budget right now. I'm not going to just go out and splurge and buy anything yet. Again, as I grew, this didn't happen, but it did happen in the beginning for several times. And they grew a respect for me because I was honest. And I said, at the end of the day, my name is Dawn's Designs is going to be on this stage. And I don't want that to reflect bad when somebody says, wow, she just threw some stuff in here and tried to get the stage. I wanted to be proud of everything that my name was on. And so it was really hard, but it was also a good thing when I didn't have the inventory, but I respectfully declined. And I also explained, and I was very honest with why I was declining. And they, again, a respect was given at that point. And so they always called me back and said, hey, how's your inventory? I need this house staged. They did. They kept coming back, and I respected that.
And that's another great reason to have relationships with other staging companies in your neighborhood, because you can refer that if you've built a great relationship and still get maybe a 10% referral fee off of that deal. Or, maybe broker the deal to where, like, can you service this client on my behalf? It's about building relationships. So when you do that, when you initiate that first awkward conversation about pricing or asking them whatever it is that you want to ask them, it's twofold. It's just relationship building in general. And trust you me, there is enough business to go around. So for our newbie stagers, or just actually any staging business owner, designer, Dawn, I know this is one of your favorite things. What do you say to them who are currently overwhelmed in their business?
I've been there more times than not. I think that they have to take a moment to just stop and breathe. And you have to surround yourself with the right people. I had many days. I mean, there were days sometimes I was just in tears and I ended in tears, but I had a great team behind me. Before I was big enough to have a team, I had a support group. I called you, Lori. There's something to be said about discussing what's going on and your pains and your growing pains and your frustrations with somebody who's in the industry and can understand exactly what you're saying. My husband is a great soundboard and I love him to pieces, but as much as he wants to understand staging and design, that's not the way his brain works. I mean, he can be there for me, but he can't understand. And he can't really talk through some of those things with me. And so my biggest thing is find your people, find your tribe, find a community. Like I said, you've got, HSRA is great for that. They have this community that's there. Pick up and call me. That's why I've been brought on board. If I don't know the answer, if I've never even heard of the problem, I will dig and I will find that answer and I will find that person that you need to talk to, because we all have it and you're not alone. And that's my biggest thing. You are not alone in anything that you're feeling. I promise you, everything is normal, even though it doesn't feel great all the time.
Yeah, that's so good. And then kind of to piggyback that, my last question for you is, right now the housing market's a little crazy. We've been really talking to our membership a lot about how they're leveraging the current statistics in the real estate market. For instance, like 1,300 price reductions in 1 week, or 5,600 houses sitting on the market, and, how they're leveraging their staging services with the realtors. And at the same time, we have our staging business owners who their phones won't stop ringing. They literally don't have to run the ads anymore. They don't have enough staff to come on. Today we had a meeting with some of our members, and one of our members who has been working outside of the business now had to jump back into the business to kind of get things shaken and rolling in the right direction. And so sometimes it's just very, very depressing for the business owner, because they feel like, man, am I ever going to get out of this? Is this cycle ever going to stop? So when you had those moments, Don, I know you mentioned you jumped on a call with me, you came to our events, but what last tip do you have for people in our industry to stay motivated through good, through bad, through ugly, kind of like in a marriage, right? Just how do they stay motivated?
I think that there's you just said it. If you have your heart and soul into something, I mean, look at me now. I haven't even left the industry. I've just shifted as to what I'm going to be a part of. If it's there, it is a marriage. It absolutely is a marriage. You were spot on. It's a marriage in a different form, for better, for worse, in sickness and in health. You are still there. And I think that even though there were many days, and I even sent a couple of my team members to conferences I couldn't attend, and that's a great feeling too, is to know that you can send your business and send somebody out there to represent you, and not be a part of it. But I think that I say all of that to say that you still need to be a part of it to a certain extent. Don't lose faith. If you have to jump back in, then it's probably a good thing that you have to jump back in, even if for the moment, because it's probably a teaching moment. As much as you don't want to hear that, I didn't want to hear it. It's almost when somebody says it was meant to be and it's not something that you really wanted to be, that they're right, even though you don't want to hear it. And so that's my piece of advice, is that as much as we don't want to hear it, and I didn't want to hear it, it probably was meant to be, because you're about to see where there was a missing piece. And then that way, exactly what puzzle piece you need to work on to fill that void. And so you've got to look at it that way too. In order to build a business, sometimes you got to step back in and just figure out how to build that puzzle piece and how to build it right, and then put it back in place.
Yeah. Remember your why. And most importantly, know that there are some awesome women and men out there that are so passionate about this industry too, and they are cheering you on. Dawn and I are some of those people. We love to cheer people on. And so, and the great thing is that Dawn's walked through it as the business owner. I've walked through it as the employee. I know the good, the bad, the ugly. It gets hard, but the thing that is so amazing, just like in marriage, is when you're seasoned in it and when you've gone through those things, you feel so much stronger once you've been through it. So that's just a little bit of encouragement for everyone today. I'm so glad that Dawn's on our team. You will be seeing a lot more of her. If you have any questions, please reach out to us. We will be back here, same time, same place next week. We hope you have a great week. We'll talk to you next time. Thanks, Dawn.
Bye.